Morning everyone, happy Wednesday. It's Dr. Dan here with Advance Upper Cervical Chiropractic, and you're tuning in to episode 16 of our Wellness Wednesday series. Last week we discussed the difference between a tension headache and just an everyday kind of dehydration headache. Today we're going to dive into what we call a cervicogenic headache, which if we break that word down to its roots, cervico, meaning the neck, genic, meaning the genesis of the creation too, meaning it's a headache caused by an injury to the neck. So as you can imagine, this is something we're quite familiar with. It's one of the more common conditions that we treat here in the office. And what we're looking at with a cervicogenic headache is to identify which injury to the neck is causing the headache. Now the initial presentation is typically going to be one-sided, and the key note to the cervicogenic headache is that it's generally going to have a very predictable referral pattern. For example, if there's been a sprain or a strain in, say, the trapezius muscle or the levator scapula muscle or the SCM of the neck, we're almost always going to be able to identify a spot of injury in the muscle belly or the tendon of those muscles and have a very specific referral pattern in the head. Typically that can be one-sided in either the temple or the occiput of the head, and it's a very sharp, kind of a pounding ache type sensation when it's being triggered. So we can look in the history of the patient. We can see where there's potential for neck injury. It could be an injury to a muscle, an injury to a joint. It could be an injury to or a sprain to the ligaments of the neck or a disc issue. And they can be either chronic or acute in nature. So if you've only have had the headache one time, it's possibly something you did recently, whether it was sleeping incorrectly, maybe there was an incorrect movement in the neck and there was a slight sprain of the ligament. But if it's chronic in nature, you need to examine why certain soft tissues are behaving the way that they are. Generally, we can look back to either a major mode of injury, but oftentimes it's related to the posture of the head and neck. How is the head sitting on top of the neck, which is affecting the soft tissues of those affected, and then why is that referring pain up to the head? With a cervicogenic headache, oftentimes over-the-counter headache treatment is not necessarily going to work very well because the origination is coming from a soft tissue located somewhere else. So that's a little bit about the cervicogenic headache. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Next week we're going to dive into the first part of our migraine series, so be sure to look out for that. And again, thanks for tuning in. This is Dr. Dan, and remember, is your head on straight?